In addition to caste, another concept to understand to help us with our spiritual duty in life are the 4 ashramas. The 4 ashramas are these different life stages that people tend to go through, and which, according to the Hindu scriptures, if they are followed properly, will enable somebody to attain total liberation by the end of their life. Each stage is said to last approximately 25 years. So there are 4 stages, so that ends up being a 100-year-long life. But the exact numbers vary from person to person, and different people go through the stages in different orders sometimes, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The very conservative Hindus will try to follow this very exactly, but it's more of a general guideline for a life trajectory than a dogma that has to be followed to the letter. The 4 ashramas begin with brahmacharya, the first 25 years of life, which is the stage of being a celibate student, which is where, rather than focusing on working in the world or having a family or anything like that, the primary duty is to study and to learn so that you are prepared for the later parts of your life, and so that you can contribute to your family and to society in the way that is most beneficial for everybody. The second stage, the second 25 years of life, is the grihastha stage, which means the householder stage. This is a stage of life when in traditional Indian society, people would be married, and oftentimes these were arranged marriages in more conservative forms of Hinduism, where the families connected with each other and decided who would marry whom, and then they would have kids and carry on the caste and the family and ensure that the ancestors would continue to have a lineage to honor them. Because in Hinduism, there are a lot of practices that revolve around honoring the ancestors and satisfying any lingering desires that the ancestors may have, because the karmic residues of the lingering desires of deceased ancestors can influence the minds of their descendants. So by satisfying these lingering desires through ritual action, lineages can gradually help each other to attain liberation. The third stage, after the grihastha stage, when somebody generally has a family and does their primary service in the workplace, in the third 25-year period or so, so from around age 50 to around age 75, there's the vanaprastha stage, which means the forest dweller stage. And this is the beginning of retirement. So this, although it is said to generally start around 50, it really starts when somebody's children have children. So once the ancestral line has been continued in that way, then they can begin to step away from the world a little bit and to focus more on spirituality than on work. And if people are in happy marriages, they would sometimes choose to move together to the forest to begin to engage in spiritual practices. And this would go on for about 25 years, and then in the final stage, the sannyasa stage, in the last 25 years of a 100-year life, there is complete renunciation of worldly engagement. And traditionally, this was differentiated from the previous vanaprastha stage primarily by ceasing to use a fire. So people would go out and live in the forest for 25 years, and then after 25 years, they would start taking on more intense spiritual disciplines, and they would give up the fire and only eat raw foods and things of that nature. This stage is a stage of intense focus on spiritual liberation and is said to prepare somebody to release the shackles of the physical body upon death and to become liberated from the necessity of rebirth. In certain cases, there are individuals who go directly from the brahmacharya stage, the first stage, to the sannyasa stage and take vows of renunciation without ever entering into the workplace and without ever having families or children. And this is a fairly rare thing to happen, and somebody really has to have a specific kind of karmic situation where they aren't leaving people behind, they don't have people who are depending on them, and they have to be really strongly drawn to the spiritual path. So even people who are extremely spiritual oftentimes find it more beneficial to engage in a householder lifestyle than a totally renunciatory lifestyle. So in addition to these cultural concepts of caste and dharma, there's another aspect of karma yoga which is very important called seva, which means selfless service. Seva is learning how to act without selfish interests in order to support the higher good for other beings. So this can look like a lot of different things in a lot of different situations, but again, it's learning how to act in a way that is non-attached to the fruit of the action. So you are acting in order to play out a particular role and hopefully to help people, but even if you fail, you are not attached to the outcome. You're doing it more in order to express this alignment of that action with your innate essence than in order to get something out of it necessarily. Even though it can be nice when things do work out for the best for all beings. So one of the ways that we can begin to practice non-attachment is by volunteering or by making donations. So we work and then we are practicing non-attachment to the fruit of our action by donating a part of our profit, our income, to benefit other beings who have less than we do and who are struggling to survive or to get by, or in order to protect the environment. There are a lot of different paths or routes or options for seva, but basically it's just a way of cultivating compassion and beginning how to learn and practice how to act in a way that benefits other beings without worrying too much about your own benefit. Om.